Always helps. Always helps to remove the camera lens. Yes, it does. How's everyone doing today? I'll give everyone just a second to join, and then we'll get right into it. All right. How's everyone doing today? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Is this packet loss? Okay, it looks like we had some packet loss, but it looks like we're back. Hey, Russell, how are you doing? How are you doing? It's good to see you. We were just about to start. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We have a bunch of stuff with security that I think you guys will actually find interesting. And so yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing we have for security today is the good old OpenSSH regression here. Yeah, let me fix this just a little bit. Better. That's better. All right. So if you're interested in it, I actually did a deep dive of a stream, and I'll be releasing the bite. I meant to release it yesterday, but I didn't get to it because we had a family event. But I'll be releasing the bite for it this evening, so you should be able to watch it tomorrow if you like. Where I just went through the entire write-up. It was a really good write-up, and we actually took a lot of notes of things that we want to learn from it. So yeah, you should go watch that bite. So yeah. Anyways, it was a really fun read. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things that I just didn't even know I didn't know, which was pretty awesome. So anyways, there is the OpenSSH vulnerability. If you need to patch. Now, if you have an older version of OpenSSH, you're probably actually not vulnerable because it is a regression of a bug that was kind of recent. Like Rocky 8 and Rocky 7 don't have the bug, but Rocky 9 does. So go check your systems and see what version of OpenSSH you're running and make sure you patch any vulnerable versions. Now, moving on, we have quite a bit in security. Hackers abuse API to verify millions of Authy multi-factor authentication of phone numbers. So this is pretty terrifying. Trilio has confirmed that an unsecured API endpoint allowed threat actors to verify the phone numbers of millions of Authy multi-factor authentication users, potentially making them vulnerable to an SMS phishing and SIM swapping attacks. So if you're using Authy, you need to be following this. Yeah. So I don't know of anything to fully mitigate it, but be careful of SMS phishing. You should be anyways, but you could definitely do that. Now, I don't use SMS for multi-factor authentication. You probably shouldn't either. There's a lot of reasons why that's not a great idea, and one of them is SIM swapping or SMS phishing. So, anyways, but if you're using it, you should be careful. You should be careful. All right, this is something I want to talk about, and maybe I'll record a video about it. But it's something that this has happened because of what I brought up about the NVD specifically. So this is a advisory for an NPM package. And the thing that happened here was that the person that reported it as a 9.8 when it really wasn't a 9.8. But there's no good way for the developer to actually fix that. And the problem is we don't have a general governing body that actually verifies what somebody reports a vulnerability as. And it caused this open source developer a lot of pain because it's not like a super abuse of the system, but it is possibly a type of abuse. And I'm not saying abuse as in like the people are meaning to do it. They're just not thinking about it. Now, GitHub did, but if you go and actually look up this vulnerability, so GitHub actually put the severity as low eventually. But if you go and look up this in like NVD, you'll still see it as a 9.8. 9.8. Critical, and it's really not. If you look into it, if you actually read the details, and this all comes back to the problem of the NVD or NIST are not actually reviewing and verifying and validating anymore, and we really need a central body to do that, and it's causing this problem specifically. So anyways, I know that I've been talking about that and keeping you all up to date, and this is some of the stuff that's starting to fall through the cracks that can be a stress on open source contributors. Also, for anybody just joining, I did not say not to use multi-factor authentication. I said that SMS multi-factor authentication is not the best. That's what I said. There's better things. The Authy app to actually do multi-factor authentication, and I don't have them right here with me, but there's hardware encrypted keys that you can use that are also better, that are also good. So, anyways, yep. Okay. So, anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because I know that we've been following it and let you guys know the after effects. All right, new Snail Lord attack exploits and network latency to spy on users' web. I found this interesting. I'm going to leave the article for you all to see and read if you like. This is an interesting attack that it's an attack, but it's less of an attack as much as snooping. Like people aren't stealing stuff from you, but they can infer like what websites you're going to and things like that because of this. It's a sniffing attack. So anyways, it was kind of interesting, but we have more important things. This should have been at the very end. Well, I saved the best for the end, actually, I think. So that's why it's not at the very end. Let's move on. Let's move on to more interesting things. Okay, so Phoenix Hardware. Phoenix Hardware, right. I think this is Phoenix. Yeah. Phoenix Technologies has acknowledged that there is an issue with their secure core firmware that runs on Intel processors family, including Alder Lake, Coffee Lake, Comet Lake, Ice Lake, Jasper Lake, Cabby Lake, Meteor Lake, Raptor Lake, Rocket Lake, and Tiger Lake. So this is a pretty severe CVSS. And I'm going to drop a link, but the big deal is this is, if you guys don't know who Phoenix Technologies is, Phoenix Technology develops the firmware and the hardware for UEI-HEF, the thing that makes sure that you can boot securely. Now, this isn't remote code execution, but if somebody gets their hands on your hardware, they can and you're running their stuff, which is Intel, they can quite easily basically hijack your boot and you not know about it. So, there's always this thing with physical security, making sure that your servers are physically safe. But, this is also there's these things that exist out there. Now, you're asking what you can do. You can update the firmware. Not a lot of people update their UEFI firmware because it's dangerous and you can brick your motherboard. So, my next, I'm not a security professional, and in my half a year of being a security professional, I would tell you that the security of your hardware, knowing where it is, who's able to touch it, is probably some of the most important things that you can do to protect it from an attack like this. All right, securing passkeys. This is an interesting attack called a AMRT, or an authentication method redaction attacks. Basically, what they are doing with the uptake of passkeys is actually basically editing the CSS or things like that to reduce the number of options you have for validation to less secure methods and hijacking those. This is kind of like using your SIM swapping attacks and things like that. But what they're doing is just reducing the number of options you have to the ones that they've made vulnerable, instead of the more secure methods. So anyways, this is something you should be aware of because it could affect your users. I'm still reading up on exactly how passkeys are more vulnerable than others, because this seems to specifically affect passkeys versus other forms of multi-factor authentication. Honestly, I need to understand how passkeys work better myself. And so this is going to kind of spur me on, because this is kind of one of the first really big vulnerabilities of passkeys that we've seen to date. So I'll be interested. I'm interested in understanding it better. All right. High precision branch target injection attacks exploiting the indirect branch predictor. These attacks are becoming more and more and more frequent as like it just from Apple Silicon to ARM to Intel to AMD, you can find branch prediction exploits. And there's yet another one for Intel. We can go into it, but it's kind of some of the same things. The good news is that they've already developed a fix for it for moving forward. So the secure BPU design that they're moving forward with Core ID should protect from this in the future, protect from this one specifically. If you're not doing this and you need to protect against it, you need to look at your SecComp profiles and ensure that your IBPB is more aggressively used. That's about it. So, all right. And then we have one last thing for security. For security, no, we don't have. This was the thing that was supposed to be last, but I already talked about it. Yeah. I already talked about it because it's just another thing. This just had the devs side of this, but I already told you the dev side of it, so we're good. Anything else for security? Do you guys see anything else? I found those all to be very interesting things. I know that we've been following them. Yeah. All right. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's jump into cloud. And then instead of artificial intelligence, and then we'll jump into software, general software, and then we'll do artificial intelligence, and then open source. We have a couple open source things that I'm very excited about. And yeah, we'll see how much time we have left. I have 2 articles that I want to talk about. One I want to talk about because I want to do it with you all. and see if you guys are interested. The other one is an article that said I spent 18 months rebuilding my algorithm trading platform in Rust. I am filled with regret. Seems like an interesting article to read. I'd like to see their insights a little bit more. Somebody that spent 18 months actively trying to do a thing, I feel like should have really good insights on that thing. So, yeah. All right, well, if you guys didn't find anything else in security, I'm going to go ahead and jump into cloud news. Now, I had talked about earlier Well, thanks for bringing it up, Russell. Please bring any of those articles that you guys find during the week, because one thing that we are going to try to do very shortly, actually, is training our own AI to basically just look at a bunch of different websites and try to pull out links to articles that we might be interested in to do the news. And so if you guys bring articles that you're interested in and we save it into a database to say, hey, these were ones that we were interested in, that's going to help us drive that engine, hopefully. Well, drop it in the Discord then, if you don't mind, Russell. If it's something more interesting for Saturday stream, love to see it. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Now, this is something that I had already mentioned in the cloud news last week. There was a Cloudflare incident with a DDoS attack. But what I wanted to bring up this week was that they actually gave a pretty awesome incident report on it that went into basically some of the ways that this happened that are actually really cool. So they're using BGP in their network, and they basically were able to misroute traffic because of the BGP hijacks. And I was reading through this. I don't have time today, but if people would actually like to read through and try to understand what's happening with the BGP reroutes here and the attack that happened here, I would love to, because this was super interesting. I learned a lot about BGP while reading this article, because I had to look up some stuff as it was going. So yeah, I did actually put this in my list of things, but I don't have the time today to go over it. But if you guys are interested, let me know. It is there. I gave you guys the link that you can look at it too. So, all right. Amazon Q Developer is now generally available in Visual Studio IDE. This is not Visual Studio Code. It's been available in Visual Studio Code, but I guess it's now available in Visual Studio IDE. So if you really wanted somebody to sit there and tell you that it can't do whatever you've asked, and you don't have how, well, Amazon Q is probably the next best thing to how. It will literally tell you it can't do anything if you ask it to do anything. So it's probably, Amazon Q is probably one of my least favorite AIs at this point. It's been 6 months. We'll try it again. But the last time we tried Amazon Q, it was complete, and it was right there with One Star Coder. At least One Star Coder gave us a smile, whereas Amazon Q didn't. No smiles. No smiles. Amazon Data Zone introduces fine-grained access control. This was the only other thing from Amazon that I found of really any relevance to us developers. So you got some fine-grained access controls added. So if you're wanting to put a little bit more security in place and use their data zones with things that require a little bit more fine-grained control, you now can do that, and that's pretty awesome. Azure's website is still down for maintenance, so there is no new thing. So it was nigh impossible for me to dumpster dive and find new things released because they're not reporting it. I did go through their whole blog, and I didn't see anything through the blog that wasn't like marketing or things like that. So I don't think there was anything in Azure. But yeah, their website's still down for maintenance. So we'll move on to GCP. GCP, common networking problems and how to troubleshoot them. I found this. They just released it. I thought that if you're running Kubernetes GKE if you're running GKE in GCP, that's about the only place you run GKE. But if you're running GKE, this was actually a pretty good high level. If you're kind of new to troubleshooting the network problems that you can find in GKE, this has like some really good starting places and links to dive deeper into the different issues. So basically, they have a couple steps you can take, and each one of these, they give you a plethora of links to like understand or try to figure out better what's going on at those levels. So I know it can be big and confusing, and I actually found this to be pretty well laid out. So yeah, go check it out. Did I give you guys the? Yeah, I did give you guys the. Awesome. Thank you so much for the follow. All right. What to know about Vertex AI monitoring? So this is actually a new feature that was released. Was their Vertex AI monitoring? It's basically a re-architecturing of their monitoring features that's trying to make it easier to use as far as I could find it and more consistent. I haven't used Vertex AI, so I don't know what they mean by more consistent. But if you're using it, you guys should go check it out because supposedly it's a lot better. It's a lot better. So, yeah. So, like I said, I haven't used Vertex AI, so I don't know, but hopefully. And that's the other thing that they released was blog articles. Isn't this amazing? Read the full blog. Read. Yep. These are literally just blogs. They're not like release it. Yep. Anyways, that was it for cloud. That's literally it for cloud. Did you guys see anything else in the cloud that was interesting news? All right, well, let's talk about AI for a little bit because there was some really cool things that happened. The first one was this paper that I read a little bit of, like the abstract and the introduction. Let's see, I started getting lost around the methodology. I might have to reattempt this. So I read like the first page and a half. Okay, that's not very much. I skimmed some of the other stuff, but it's. I skimmed some of the other stuff. Anyways, the interesting part of this that I found came out is we've talked a lot about RAGs and how to leverage them. And in fact, I have a co-op stream coming up where we don't use AI, but we just use vector and graph and key value stores to do something pretty amazing that almost looks like AI, but has none of the hallucination problems of AI. So it actually is pretty cool. That will be a fun stream. I will announce it when it gets closer. Anyways, we have what this is doing is looking at basically trying to make an automatic RAG. So a lot of work can go into actually building out a good RAG and actually leveraging it properly. And this is trying to save you time and energy with a way to automatically RAG your software by some basically what they call task-specific exam generations, which basically are just some exams for each of the tasks that your AI can do and how to RAG it. So anyways, it's a cool concept. Like I said, some of it went over my head. I'm going to have to spend more time than I had over the 4th of July to read up on it, but it was interesting. I think that you should check it out if you're interested in RAGs. All right, moving on. Sam Altman anticipates ChatGPT 5 as a significant leap forward over ChatGPT 4, which occasionally goes off the rail with mistakes even a 6-year-old wouldn't make. Fantastic. He always thinks that the next one is a significant leap. That's his job as a CEO. All right. This was really cool from Cloudflare. I didn't put this in the cloud because it should have been in the cloud, but declare your AI independence. Block AI bots, scrapers, and crawlers with a single click. This is a cool tool. I'd like to see more clouds provide this, although they want your data, so they don't want you to have this. This is basically Cloudflare made a way to block the majority of AI crawlers that are crawling the web for data. I think that this is going to become a more common practice as like I've stated, AIs don't play nicely with, they don't have a symbiotic relationship like search did, where people aren't going to the site to then, read the information. They're just taking it and regurgitating it to you in their own site. And so has archive.io, it's blocking AI bots and scrapers. Not all bots and scrapers, right? There's no difference, right? Only in purpose. Sure. I mean, yeah, that's like saying that a friend and a home invader are no different. They're both entering your house. That's true. Their purposes are different, for sure. I think that's a pretty major thing. How they detect what an AI bot is and what is not an AI bot, I don't know entirely. They could just be looking at like IP addresses that are known to be owned by large AI companies. I don't know. Again, like I said, but we can put this into our investigation list if you would prefer, if you guys would like to try to figure out how they block specifically AI bots. Absolutely. At 3 a.m. All right. Google blames AI as its emissions grow instead of heading to net zero. So there's that. Microsoft AI boss thinks it's perfectly okay to steal content if it's on the open web. I actually had to dig into this because I thought this was actually I think that this is a really bad take. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think this is a really bad take. Yeah. Russell, this is actually a really interesting thing here. Google blames AIs as emissions grow instead of heading towards net zero. So as software engineers, one of the things that we should always be trying to do is to try to get the best result with the fewest resources. I mean, if your application scales, and obviously there's over optimizing when you're small, and I'm not saying to try to over optimize, but I mean, the end goal is to use the fewest CPU cycles to achieve the results that are needed. AI, in my opinion, seems to take the opposite approach. And even so, the methods we use for AI today were actually developed in the 60s. And in the 60s, they said, nah, this isn't going to work because it's just too computationally expensive. And there has to be better ways to do the same thing. And so then in 2020, we were like, we can just throw a lot of GPUs at it. But I don't know that that's like the best way to do it per se. It's a way to do it, but not necessarily the best way. And AI seems to be heading down the Bitcoin path, right? It seems to be headed towards the same thing, which is to say, hasn't shown real value. And you know, AI, I'll give it this. AI is a really awesome chatbot. So it might have some value. Now, is it worth how much we've shelled out for it? Maybe not that. But it has seemed to have some value if you want to have a front line of customer service that can, you know, that's ragged with your documentation that can help people before it gets to real people. Maybe it has some value there. So I think that there are some values. You know, also, I have actually found one legitimate, I used to use the thesaurus. Everybody knows that I struggle with the written language. And I used to use the thesaurus a lot, and then I struggled using that very well. And ChatGPT has actually helped me reword stuff or come up with ways to reword stuff and not necessarily just use what it says, but at least use the idea of how, you know, I'm like, oh, I want this to be a more sarcastic tone or a more, a stern tone or a loving tone. Like, it has helped me rewrite some phrases like that, which I found useful. Again, not as pointless as Bitcoin, but maybe close. Maybe close. All right, so let's move on. That was a rabbit hole. The robots in the making. Fantastic. All right. One thing that I'm super interested in, because I've talked about how much time I can spend trying to create infographics for educational videos. Well, Google Vids, the not yet released but almost graveyard application, is an AI video generator. Now, I haven't gotten to test it yet. I'm trying to get in for the test. But it is coming out. It's an AI-powered video editing app. We'll see how it does. They say video editing will make infographics. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see what it does. We'll see how well it works. Absolutely sub 71. And I have said this from the very, very start. And you can ask the former head of OpenAI. It is statistical analysis. And he has never said anything else. His thinking, which I disagree with him on this, but he's a very smart person, is that maybe on this line of guessing, it comes up with something we've never thought of because it falls on that statistical analysis guessing line. Okay? And I'm simplifying that a little bit. But that's his theory on it. But absolutely right. It has helped me with large language model stuff. It has helped me with those types of things. It's not intelligent at all. It doesn't have intelligence. I actually think that it's holding back the machine learning category as a whole because everybody's focused their time, energy, and effort and money on this thing. And this thing is what it is. And so I think it's actually holding everybody back. But that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Who am I? I have predicted some things. All right. Now, I know that we talked about, we're getting into some general software, and then we'll jump into the open source. We brought up Bitcoin, and, I thought the Bitcoin craze was gone. But it turns out Sony is to launch a new, thank you, Sub71, launch a new Bitcoin exchange. That's just what the world needed. Yet another Bitcoin exchange. Did you guys have anything else in the machine learning news? I'm sorry, I skipped over asking. I should have asked a little bit more. I should have waited just a little bit. But I know that Russell brought up Bitcoin, and so I was excited because Sony has decided to enter the market. My hair is a disaster. All right. My apologies. Whew. Did not look in the mirror before this. Should have. That's for sure. Yes. Russell brought up the crypto. Russell, you're always trying to make me sound like something I'm not. So here's my turn to make you sound like something you definitely are. Russell was out there defending crypto while we were talking about AI/ML. I don't even know why he thought that was, but you always do this though. I'm sorry, Russell. I know that you're not. Nobody else does. I know that you're not. I meant it as I got excited because Russell brought up the fact that AI is following a lot of the same trends that we saw from Bitcoin, which is actually really true. He was stating that like Bitcoin failed to really find a use. I mean, people will still talk about its use, but it's very difficult to actually realize that use, and very few people have done it. And then also, Bitcoin has been really expensive. Like as far as hardware and equipment and power goes, it's very expensive. And so he was bringing in the realization that AI has followed a lot of the same hype trend. It's very hyped. We still haven't realized its real use. Don't get me wrong, there's people that are using blockchains out there. Walmart's a really great one for doing logistics. Now, they're using a private blockchain. They're not using one of these public ones, but they are using a ledger, a blockchain, for some really interesting things. So I'm sure that we will also find some uses of AI/ML. But they're going to be much more niche, or at least in the near term, from what I have seen, they're going to be much more niche than a lot of the hype has pushed so far. And the other thing that he was bringing the correlation to is the amount of power that they're using. They're using astronomical amounts of power. I actually question whether if people really used ChatGPT to ask, I don't know, let's say 50 questions a day, would they make money on the $30 subscription? I'm not sure. The amount of power that goes into that is a lot. All right. Did that clear it up, Russell? I hope I did. I hope I did not throw you under the bus. That was not my intent. Oh, no. That would be terrible. If Sony starts making you use crypto on the PlayStation, like if that's like their new money, that would be the worst. Oh my goodness. Let's hope that the execs talk to me, Sony execs. If you need some guidance, if you'd like a little bit of East Coast American guidance, please talk to me. I'd love to talk to you, and I will give you my honest advice. Microsoft finally updates the Linux kernel in Windows Subsystem for Linux after 2.5 years. I didn't realize that they weren't actually updating the Linux kernel that was powering WSL, but they weren't. So they're bringing it to version 6.6. So they're bringing it all the way up to one of the most recent versions. So that's good. I don't know that as far as I have seen, there aren't really much changes to the people using WSL that I know of. As far as I know, there shouldn't be much change to you if you're using it. One of the big things, though, that I was looking at and when I was reading about it was it looks like they're trying to make fewer out-of-tree changes. So they're trying to be less of a custom kernel, which I think if they can become not a custom kernel, which may be impossible, maybe a lot of work, I don't know. But the closer they can become to not a custom kernel, I think the better. Now, the source code is available. It is the WSL kernel is available for you to go see. So you can go check out the changes that they made. I'm not good enough at kernels to really tell you much on that. Something really interesting that came out is the Quadata. You have to put a U after a Q. This is English 101. You always put a U after a Q. That's all I know. That's like all I know about English. U goes after the Q. If you don't, it's unpronounceable. And you can basically make up anything that you'd like. That's the other rule. That's rule 2 of English that I know. All right. Codata is what I'm going with. Codata. Codana. It's probably Codana, like Codana. It's Codana. That's what they're going for. I have no idea. Anyways, sorry for going on a tangent on that. They have a new self-hosted option. This is new here. If you guys don't know what this is basically you can. I was hoping, basically, this is JetBrains static code analysis. So basically, even if you guys don't use JetBrains IDE, you can actually get their Codana. You can get it and run it as a server and basically get that static code analysis for you. So I'm a big fan of static code analysis, so I think that this is pretty cool. And basically what they brought was a self-hosted. So if you're worried about them, having your code on their servers, this is basically a way to ensure that they don't train their AIs on it. So that's cool. Yeah, and I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of static code analysis. Really am. There's a lot of things that get solved by static code analysis. Good static code analysis. Unveiling a new Epic experience for improved agile planning from GitHub. Now, you guys know that I am a huge agile fan. So this caught my eye. Because I'm actually excited about this because let me be real with you here. I'm always real with you. I can't be more real with you. Let me tell you something. As much as I joke about Scrum and Agile, I actually like a lot of the core tenets or at least a lot of the core ideas. I think that they're commonly implemented wrong or poorly. But there are really good ideas that are that stem from some of that. So yeah, I don't like Scrum and Agile in general, but I do like them in concept or at least aspects of them. So anyways, I'm always looking forward to people coming up with new ideas on how to do it without too much process and not too much businessing, not too businessing. I am a huge Waterfall fan through and through. I love Waterfall. It's this. When you guys get as good as I am at software engineering, if you guys see anything from my streams, you realize that I can envision the entire application entire complicated applications. We're talking about distributed applications that handle the distribution inside and maintain consensus. I can manage all of that in my head. It takes me about 30 minutes to come up with a good application architecture. And I don't need to iterate on that. I've already gotten a perfect. I've already gotten a perfect application. I just have to write it out. So and this is waterfall. I mean, this is easily waterfall. It takes me about a day and to write up about a year's worth of code. You know what needs to be done. It's really the only way. But there are some less demigod engineers out there, and they definitely need something to iterate with. So I mean, this is where, you know, what's good for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And if you guys don't know, I am joking. Just so you know, I suck. All right, let's move on. If you didn't know, I was joking. Don't go chasing waterfall. All right, we have seen a plethora of Rust-based Webpack competitors. But RSPack actually caught my eye. I almost didn't say anything about this one because I was like, this is like the 6th Rust thing in the last 3 weeks that is trying to fix a JavaScript problem. But RSPack actually caught my eye because it's looking to be a Webpack compatible API, meaning it's looking to be a drop-in replacement that's just better. And that's actually really awesome. So I'm actually very excited about RSPack because it actually seems like a Webpack competitor that you can just switch to. Now, I think they have extra features that you can leverage if you actually start to adopt it, but this allows you to drop it in and slowly switch to the features that you want or need without like immediately rewriting everything from the ground up because you have a complicated application that you've been using Webpack for 10 years. So I think RSPack is like the first real competitor in my eyes from some of the other Rust-based ones that have been trying to fix Webpack. Yeah. So I'm actually excited about this. I'm actually pretty excited about this. It doesn't say blazingly fast. It says fast start. You know what? I will email them. This is a shame. This should be it says blazing fast startup. You're right. They failed. They failed to be a real Rust project. Good point. Good point, Russell. I didn't even look at that before I supported them in their travesty of a Rust project. I don't know why I had this separated into open source. I was going to say that was software. Now we'll jump into open source. But RSPack was supposed to be part of open source. So we're kind of already into open source. So let's just keep going with the open source. You guys leave me in the articles if you've thought of something or found something that was interesting in open source. So Rust meets Dart with a release of Rust Core 1.0.0. And I was like, holy crap, what is this? I had to read into it a little bit to understand. I actually read all of it. But what I gleaned from this article, drafted on July 3rd, was that Rust Core is basically a Dart implementation of the Rust standard library that's supposed to be like API compatible. I actually think that this is kind of cool. They took the Rust Core API as basically the API to match. And if more languages did this, this would be really cool because the whole idea is they have a bunch of Dart and Rust people and they wanted a common API that they could just leverage. And so basically they made this common API from, Rust, STD and Dart. So you can use anything in STD in either Dart or Rust, which is kind of cool, honestly. Now, I don't know if they wrapped the Rust in Dart or how they provided all of that. I haven't gotten to dig into it. I saw this yesterday, and then I had to drive home and a bunch of stuff, so I didn't get to dig fully into it. But this is actually a really cool thing. If we could get more languages to accept a core API, that's actually really interesting because it would make it so much easier to switch between languages. I like it. It's a lot of work, though. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work. Bevy 14 released. We are going to make a game, and we are going to make a game and use Bevy, but we're going to use Godot first, or some people pronounce it as Godot, based off of I believe there's like some history that some group of people believed in a god, Godot. I don't know that history well, obviously. So thus I pronounce it Godot. Anyhow, that being said, we'll also do something with Bevy. I want to do something little and simple with Bevy. So I have a couple little games that I want to make just for free for people. We'll probably pick a really easy one to try to do in Bevy. And it should be fun. But Bevy 14 released, which is really cool. The reason I bring it out, I don't know enough to be like, oh, this filmic color grading was the really key thing that we've been needing. I don't know enough about that. The big thing is that it's cool to see it progressing as you know, a fully fledged game engine. So I'm just really happy and wanted to share with you guys that, you know, it is progressing, which is cool. Good job to them. Drum roll. Swift 6. And the reason I'm bringing up Swift 6, I have honestly said that Swift is a language that could woo me away from Rust if it wasn't owned by Apple. I'm probably going to have to do some Swift on stream. I actually do really like the Swift language. And one of the things in Swift 6 that is really cool, and I don't know how it's implemented at this point, but they have data race contention built into the compiler, which sounds awesome. It's not a special type. It's not like an arc with a mutex. Data race contention inside of the compiler. So I don't know how useful it's going to be. Like I said, there's open questions about it, but that's actually one of the things that I want to do a stream on, just testing it out and playing around with it. I want to understand the limitations or not limitations of it. Because, you know, we talk about type safety and those types of safety, and then there's like thread safety, and we can start getting into some of those types of safeties, which get a little bit harder. Now, Rust has a good set of generics for thread safety, but there's always ways to look at these problems and solve them in different ways. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not excited about Apple's stranglehold on the language, but I'm really excited about that. So we're going to have to do a Swift stream and play around with that. All right. That is it for the open source. Did you guys see anything in open source? I know that very shortly, Kubernetes 130 is going to be released. We'll do a very quick high-level notes on that on stream, and I'll make a bite out of it. And then, so I have two things. I'm going to do a stream on this, if you guys would like. I'm interested in doing this, but because I haven't done an eBPF. I've only done eBPF in C, and I'm terrible at C. And so I saw this article that was Zero to Performance Hero, How to Benchmark and Profile Your eBPF Code in Rust. So I kind of want to write an eBPF module in Rust, not C. Because I did it in C the last time I did it. So I actually did an eBPF thing for clustered. And anyways, this is like benchmarking and profiling your eBPF code, which seems really, really cool. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to follow along and just basically do this ourselves and make a little eBPF module that doesn't destroy our computer. The eBPF module that I did had hard-coded the IP addresses of the control plane and basically just dropped any communication from the control plane. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Yeah. Yeah. All right, and I don't have the time today, but I want to go over this. I spent 18 months rebuilding my algorithmic trading platform in Rust. I'm filled with regret. I want to go over this and try to understand what their regret was, what they were going from, and what their complaints were. I feel like if they actually spent 18 months, they should have some really good insights into some problems they had with Rust. So yeah, I'd like to see that. So I don't have the time today. Skill issue, Sergeant Pepper, I can almost guarantee you toxic community is one of his things that he doesn't like. I can almost guarantee you. Yep. Almost positive. There's going to be a complaint about that. Probably a lifetime issue. I think lifetimes are misunderstood in Rust. And by misunderstood, I mean that people feel like they need to use them. And I feel like you only need to use lifetimes if you're doing something highly performant and highly specific. And then they can be a little bit of a pain. But that is the same true for C++ or C. If you need to use lifetimes or, memory like that, the amount of pain that you're going to do to safely share that memory that would require a lifetime in Rust would also be just as painful in C or C++, or more painful and less safe. So that would be my argument, is like the lifetime. This is why I've wanted a garbage collector, a Rust garbage collector. I know that that's not super popular, but I think that you could make a really lightweight one and get rid of a lot of people's issues with Rust. Now, I know that you couldn't run both side by side, so it'd have to be two languages, but basically a language like Rust, except with a garbage collector, and then Rust. Yeah. Yeah. See, I think that you can do the high-level statistical things with Rust, and you can just forget about the low-level memory. If you need to, just copy. That's why I say I think it's a little bit misleading, because you can copy with Rust and still be more performant than Python, right? Like, you don't have to write the most performant Rust code, right? That I feel like that's a trap that a lot of people fall in. I fall into that myself sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I've got to do this because that's the performant thing to do. I've got to share this piece of memory. No, I don't. I could just copy it. It's a small struct. And some compilers are even getting really good at copying. Like Go's compiler, I know, does this for sure. If you copy but don't edit in the function, so basically if your function copies it, makes a copy, it doesn't actually make a copy. So if you pass a struct by value, it's supposed to copy the struct, right? Well, it doesn't necessarily do that if you don't actually edit it. The compiler's actually pretty smart and says, I don't need to make a copy because it's never changing in that function. So I would guess the Rust compiler, I don't know off the top of my head if the Rust compiler does that, but I would guess it also tries to do that. It probably doesn't, because you actually call copy. So it probably doesn't. It probably can't, but. Anyways, I'd like to read over this article. But we're not going to do it today because I just don't have the time. If I do get the time, I won't have the time tonight. I probably won't do it tomorrow. I think we'll be pretty busy tomorrow on stream. I'll get the time to do it next week. It's on my list. And we're definitely going to do a eBPF Rust eBPF. I'd love to do some Rust eBPF code just to give it a shot. We've wanted to learn more about eBPF. I've done very little, very little eBPF code. So if you guys are interested, let me know. And thanks everybody for joining me for the news. Thanks for the news, or thanks for joining me for the news. I got to get going. I got stuff to do, and I will see you guys tomorrow for a long stream of... We have to talk about my plans for tomorrow. I'm a little stuck right now on the database side. I don't want to jump into doing... Legion, so we could just start working on clustering and learning about clustering, but I kind of want to finish our consensus work so that I can work on the video for it. But I'm still thinking on it. I'm still thinking about how we want to go forward. Like, it's such a big problem that we're about to tackle. It will make every other video seem like just insanely simple. Multi-raft is a big problem to solve, or multi-Paxos is a big problem to solve. And how we get to the end is a thing that I need to think on. I need to think a lot on. So we could just copy and paste something, but that we're trying to learn something here. So anyways, we might do a little thinking on it tomorrow. We're also going to deploy our new version of our stream alerts, because we worked on the whole new setup where we use HTMX. So we'll also get that deployed. We got to work on its container. So we got some things to do. If we have nothing else, we'll do the Rust article. There we go. Sounds like tomorrow might be a Taylor Swift 6 stream. I don't understand what that means. What's a Taylor Swift 6 stream? Oh, Swift. I'm so bad at this streaming thing. Swift. We could do Swift 6. Wait. Arch Swift. Is it Swift 6 packaged for Arch yet? I'll see about getting it installed on Arch. If it's not too bad, we might try some Swift. Yeah. Taylor Swift 6 stream. I get it now. All right. I have to get to work. That's my lunch. I appreciate you guys joining me for my lunch to go over the things that I saw for the news. And let me know how I can make these news better for you all with better news and whatnot. I got to work on that AI. And anyways, have your guys selves a fantastic weekend. And I hope to see you on the weekend some if you have the time.